Excellent. So I'm going to be turning the mic over to the moderator for this next segment. We're going to show her some extra love. She had a little fender bender on the way. Grateful she's all right and here ready to do her thing. So clap it up for Sly as she makes it to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you. How are you guys? How are y'all this morning? I'm doing well, especially after the fender bender. But welcome to Breaking in Tech. Bring up the panelists, Joaquin, Kelly, Ashley, and Nathan. They'll be joining me on stage for Breaking in Tech. Y'all give it up for them. So my name is Sly Rock, Sly the Clever on social media. This is Breaking into Tech, the panel. This will be a panel about your journey into breaking into tech. And we have different perspectives on the stage today, so you'll get to hear quite a bit. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So you guys give us your name, your titles, and just a smidget of how you broke into tech.
I'm Nathan Alote. Got into technology. My current role at the moment is Senior Digital Marketing Strategist. So, running paid acquisition ads through different social media channels on Google, Bing, all that. How I got into tech, pretty much, I saw, in a sense, a trend of so many people wanting websites. So then I was like, that's interesting. So I started learning web design and development. But then I wanted to get into the other side. How do you market and get people to a website? And I saw that skill translated no matter where I worked or no matter what I did. So yeah, I do digital marketing for tech startups.
Hi, good morning. Kelly Ballou McMillan, and I currently serve as the CTO and co-founder of an organization called Legacy. It's where we're building community and an infrastructure for Black people, Black and Brown people, to get into technology, but via technology sales. So think of you being able to sell the Zoom, sell the software that he just mentioned. And so prior to that, I was a head of global voice partnerships at LivePerson, which is an AI, conversational AI firm. And I was responsible for bringing voice into that AI platform. And then prior to that, because of all the things, I served at a CCaaS software firm where I helped consultants and entrepreneurs bring over about $500 million worth of revenue into our business. And obviously that revenue translated into wealth for them as well. So when we say, Sly, you asked how we got into this, I was a banker 10 years ago. And so I'm going to age myself. It was a blind Craigslist ad. My family moved out to the Bay Area. And I realized really quickly that they do not bank the same way that they did here in Texas or in other parts of the country. And so I responded to a blind Craigslist ad. And I could have been I could have gone to like a winery and done that, or I could have gone to this technology distribution company. And I was just sharing with one of the panelists, I had no idea what I was doing for like the first 2 years because I didn't understand the impact. But once I did, and then I moved on to working at a software firm, it just opened up my eyes on really how impactful technology can be for those who want to sell it, who have a marketing kind of background, and bring in wealth to their families. So that's how I got here.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Hughes. I currently am the founder of Tech for the Culture, which is a local community group here where we actually bring together Blacks in tech and technology, Black professionals to come together and learn and grow and build. Previously, I have worked at a lot of different Fortune companies, recently Google, Target, and Home Depot, and I have about 18 years of experience in tech, but I did not go, I went the traditional route of being a technologist through computer science from my school. I graduated from Dillon University in New Orleans. However, once I got into the actual corporate setting of being a software engineer, I ended up pivoting to more of a program manager, technical program manager, which is what I am today. Just because, when you're in the curriculum of computer science and you're doing it, you're like, okay, I can do this. But then once you're actually in the real world of your corporate job, you realize, you know what, I'm more of a social person as opposed to sitting at my computer all day programming. So I did a bit of a pivot, but I did go the traditional route to be in tech. And basically it has reaped so many benefits in my life. And I see it as a career that I'll continue to grow and thrive in.
Hey guys, my name is Joaquin Morris, and I am a senior business intelligence lead for waste management. I serve in digital sustainability. One thing that I do is I basically take different types of pipelines of data and I establish those pipelines and create different types of visuals to make sure that top executives can make data-driven decisions. And that's what I do. And so basically, I started as a teacher. I graduated from the best HBCU in the land, Savannah State University. Just for all my HBCU alum out there. So once I did that, I graduated with a bachelor's of mathematics with a minor in computer science. So I technically was already had my foot in tech, but I started off as a teacher. Eventually, after I became a teacher, I needed some more opportunities to be able to prepare and take care of my family. So that's when I made the pivot to get into tech. Basically starting more so in the data realm, and so once I started with data, software engineering, then move more toward the data software engineering, and so once I got into that, and then it basically just took off from there, and so yeah, that's where I'm at.
Nice, nice. So this is breaking into tech, and for the panelists who came from outside into tech, what was like the biggest challenge or surprise? Anyone can answer that question.
I'll take first stab at it. My biggest surprise was, as what I'll say, the smart people in the room are sitting to my left, right? And so I thought coming into tech that you could only do it by being a software engineer or a coder or something like that, right? You're building something. But I quickly realized that if they build it, how are you going to get it, right? Who's going to sell it to you? And that's where I come in, right? Me and other people, the marketing team. You need analysts, you need a legal team, you need an entire company because they can build it and it can be an amazing platform. But if nobody is helping get exposure to that, then you can't. Then it won't go anywhere. And so for me, what I realized really quickly is that anybody can use their transferable skills to get into technology. And it's the diversity of those skill sets, your previous experience that really helps an organization continue to grow and thrive.
No, it was good. For me, I think one of the biggest challenges was having those feelings of inadequacy. When you first kind of get into the tech space, you're new, you're fresh. You don't really know a lot of things, right? So getting over those feelings of inadequacy, relating myself to my white counterparts as well, because there's that thing where you feel like, you're the only person that doesn't know anything and everybody else knows something. So for me, it's more so of getting over those feelings of inadequacy, knowing that, hey, yeah, I'm worth it too. I can actually do this as well. And sometimes when you get into these spaces, you think that you can't do it because then, like I said, I'm more so I come from a data background, right? So that's my side of things. So from a data perspective, there are tons of different tools that are out there, whether it be SQL, Snowflake, PostgreSQL, whatever the case may be. All of those tools, you feel like, you just feel like you just can't learn it, right? And you may feel like it's difficult, but you have to be able to get over those feelings of inadequacy, knowing that you can get past those things and you can achieve those things as well. Amen.
I'll just add one thing too. I think one of the biggest eye-opening experiences of working at a tech company or in a tech department is I feel like society tells you you need to know everything, right? You need to get this certification, you need to, get a degree and all this type of stuff. But the real gag is that they actually teach you everything they want you to know, right? So you don't have to know everything. And also in tech, it's okay to say that you don't know. That shows that you're willing to learn. And people actually really, really respect that because most people, especially in tech, they love, love, love teaching people, right, on how to do things. But I would say that was something that was the biggest thing is just I don't have to know it all. I can still progress, throughout my career and being honest and saying that I don't know it all because ultimately, just like any other job, they're really going to teach you what they want you to know.
One thing just to add to what everybody said, I think the biggest thing, if you want to pivot in, or how do you get into tech per se, and some of their backgrounds is, I think you need to understand how you learn. How do you best take in information? How do you best absorb information? Because not everybody is the same. So whether it's on the job and getting advice from different people, or you're getting a degree or a certification, whatever, how best do you learn and being able to communicate that? Because people want to know, regardless of whatever type of tech job you do get, are you going to be able to do the role, and how quick can you learn how we as a company specifically do things? And if you can at least communicate, this is how I learn, I know how to apply, and this is an example of how I've done that in the past, I think you can take that and run with it.
Nice. And Ashley, you said,
Y'all want some more mics?
well, with yes, that would be great. That would be awesome. But you said well by saying, it's okay to say that you don't know. And I think, as people coming into tech, you can be really intimidated by all of the knowledge, all of the certifications that you may need to get or may not need to get, but you don't know, because you're just stepping into it for the first time. So I think that's great. Nathan, I know you came from a dev background and you pivoted. You're still in tech, but you pivoted more into a digital marketing space. Why the transition, and how does your technical background help with that?
All right, we good. Thanks. Yeah, so just a little bit of background on me. My undergrad, I went to Baylor University in Waco, Texas, and I was doing electrical and computer engineering. So when I graduated, I was working for a server management company, but we were just doing the server itself. A lot of our customer base was saying, do you do websites? Do you do websites? I was like, no. But I saw a trend of so many people asking. I was like, why are so many people asking about this one thing? Let me look into it. And that's when I started looking into web design and development, honestly, self-taught. I was looking at YouTube. I was looking at Google. I was buying books on Amazon and just trying to see if I could recreate things that I saw out there after I got to a certain point, even learning the Adobe suite, right? Learning how to use Photoshop and different things of that nature. So I was just learning and trying out different things. And then I got good enough to where somebody hired me to do something. I was like, man, they hired me. I don't know. Well, I know more than them. So I was like staying one step ahead of whoever hired me and just trying to get things done. And I was able to complete projects and get confidence. However, I did see that people don't necessarily want a website. They wanted the end result of what a website can bring them. And that was like the marketing side of things. So I was like, okay. I saw an opportunity that a lot of people were running to tech, but not to these other areas that supported tech, right? As you highlighted earlier. So I was like, okay, I see an opportunity. I actually went to University of Houston. I got my MBA in digital marketing, but I paired that with what I already knew about technology because unfortunately, at least from what I saw, a lot of people in the tech space couldn't necessarily communicate the value of what they did in a business sense on how it brought value to a customer or the company. So I just started understanding what's the language, what's the syntax, what's the lingo on how to communicate business value for whatever it is in technology. And that was part of how I made the transition. And then to take it a step further, doing just digital marketing, focusing on a particular niche. And I focused on startups. That way, everything I was learning is applicable to different companies in the startup space. So yeah, that was that journey.
Nice. It's interesting that you said startups. And I saw the same kind of, pain point too when it comes to tech and tech companies trying to figure out how to push, the product and things out there. So I'm glad we're actually talking about it from this angle. Joaquin, what made you, I know we talked a little bit about it when you introed, but what was just like that, all right, I'm just going to pivot straight into it when it came to tech from teaching? And I know you said you were in there a little bit. You were technical.
Yeah. So for me, and let me just kind of say this first before I answer that question. Everybody's steps look different, right? My step is not going to be the same as your steps. And also something to keep in mind, for me, I have a math background with a minor in computer science, right? So my family calls me, the mathematician, right? That's what my family calls me. So breaking into tech was a little easier for me, right? Because I already had a logical type of background, right? Especially when it came from a development standpoint. So I'm going to tell you a story about my steps versus actual steps, right? Because it didn't really feel like a deliberate step-taking process, right? But for me, it was more so of, hey, I was a teacher and I just moved to Houston from Georgia. And when I moved to Houston, I was teaching for about, maybe 2 years. And I went through a program called A+ Texas Teachers. And Texas Teachers gives you about maybe 3 years to pass the certification exam. Well, I took it once, didn't pass. Took it twice, didn't pass. Took it 3 times, didn't pass. So the school system was like, nah, bro, you're going to have to get up out of here because we need only certified teachers, right? So I was kind of forced into looking for other different jobs, right? So I started applying, and then I applied to a company called Family Tree DNA. Once I applied to that company, I took a $20,000 pay cut from teaching. Now, teaching back in 2009, between 2011, I think the median salary was about maybe $45,000, right? So I took a pay cut. And I was just sharing with Kelly earlier that I call it, me and my family, we call it my internship, right? Because I think that's pretty much where it started. And it started out in software development and software engineering, where we did a lot of things with different types of development coding like C#, SQL Server, things of that nature. Did some web development using tools like HTML, things like that. But after that, I moved from, software development into more of the data space when I started working for Baker Hughes. Baker Hughes, and at the time was the third largest oil service provider in the world. Moved there, and that's where my data pathway pretty much started from there. And so after that, I started using different types of tools like Udemy, Coursera, things like that, taking different types of boot camps to start learning the different types of tools that I need to know for whatever the job demanded at the time, right? And so that's how I pretty much kept growing in this tech space. So I basically moved from oil and gas to an actual tech company, worked in different logistics companies as well. So with all that going down, that's kind of those were my steps, and it kind of felt like I was rolling with the punches, right, more than the actual steps that were being taken. In a lot of ways, I feel like steps were laid out. I just had to kind of walk on them, right? And so that's my story. Those are my steps.
Okay, nice. And Kelly, you're in tech sales, which is one of the most direct kind of ways to get into tech. I would say, what do you think people misunderstand about breaking into tech sales? I know people kind of, when it comes to sales, it's, interesting, but tech sales, what would you say about that?
I mean, I think one of the things that people think is that you have to go work for the company. You have to go work for a Zoom or a Microsoft or whoever, right? And if you don't work for one of those, or, that it's not the same, that you can't get it done, that you're not really in sales. The neat thing that I love about what I do, what my co-founders and I are creating, is that we actually help consultants and entrepreneurs sell technology, right? And so you can wear your own Savannah State, you can wear whatever it is you want, right? Whatever your own brand and logo is. And at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is solve a problem for the business that you're working with, right? So I liken it to when you go into a Best Buy, you can get all these different, technologies right in front of you. But as a consultant, if I'm consulting waste management on what new technology they need or what new platforms that they need to leverage, or how to leverage AI, for instance, which a lot of organizations are still trying to figure out, then I'm going to go to an individual who that's kind of all they focus on, right? They're going to have a breakdown of and a process on how they're going to say, okay, well, is LivePerson the right one? Is Zoom the right one? Is this AI firm the right one for our team? And they're going to do an analysis on that, and then they're going to give that back to waste management or whomever else, who the consultant is or who the client is, And that's how they're going to make that decision. Now, the other amazing part of that is when they help this company make that decision, now instead of right now you get a salary and you might get a small commission. If you're the consultant on that project, you're getting at least 20 to 30% of the overall cost of that project. Now, I worked when I was at Five9. One of my consultants sold a multi-country, huge. It was a huge opportunity, and I can't mention the name of the company, but they were a logistics company that gets our packages from place to place. And the neat thing about them is that they were leveraging, AI. And so now, if you go to their platform, you can talk to them on the phone. You can do things through SMS. They are anticipating your need, right? And they're in multiple countries. So that consultant is bringing in over 100. That deal was over $100 million. They're bringing in 20 to 30% of that on a monthly basis until that company decides that this platform is no longer for them. So when we talk about the impact of technology sales, that's one side of it, being a consultant. But for Black people, that is wealth management. That's this wealth building that we keep talking about. Like, what does that look like? That's economic development for our communities. And so for me, now that passion is like, okay, I've done it. I understand what it's like to be on the vendor side of the house and see and support consultants. So now let me go, help some Black consultants figure this out and understand that you can do the same thing and you can be global. You don't have to be, in one place, and you can actually have wealth generation for your family.
Nice. And if you guys could already tell, we have these different paths into breaking into tech. Nathan came from dev to digital marketing. Kelly is in tech sales. Joaquin came from teacher to business intelligence. Then Ashley is the founder of Tech for the Culture. So tell us about how you started Tech for the Culture.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tech for the Culture is something that has been around for about 8 years now. I would say initially we started out Tech for the Culture with the idea of having us in mind, mainly because when I moved here from Minneapolis about 12 years ago, I was very much so inside the Minneapolis startup scene, right? And I was thinking, well, I'm moving to Houston, the fourth largest city in the country. They absolutely got to have it, everything on deck tech-wise, right? But that was not the case. So I was going to all these different little meetups and things like that. And what I found was I can pretty much talk to a tree, right? And in these particular environments, there was a lot of people there who didn't look like us, right? And what I found was even though I could talk to a tree, it was still hard for me to break into those different conversations. So I got with my co-founder, Reggie, who's also speaking on the panel, I think tomorrow. And we kind of talked about the different experiences that we were having going to these different networking events, like these tech networking events, and how difficult it was. So we just said, we're going to build, the change. We want to be the change, right? So we built it. And we initially started out having a lot of panels, a lot of workshops and things like that. So it's more so to help educate people on tech. And then I would say this year, because of the pandemic, I would say also with the pandemic, it kind of changed the way how we had to do things. So it's very hard to replicate an in-person experience virtually when everybody has already been on calls pretty much all day on Zoom for work. Then you got baby showers on Zoom, you got birthday parties, funerals, weddings, everything, right? And we were trying to do the same thing. So we said, it was working for a little bit, but everybody got exhausted, right? So once the pandemic was somewhat over, we decided to restart the community. And initially we started out with maybe 20 people, whereas before we had maybe, 60 people for every event. So then we just said, we're going to just have it at a coffee shop. 20 people showed up. Then the next time we had it, 40 people showed up, then 60. And now we average about anywhere from 175 to about 200 plus people per event. And then we said, we want to make sure that everybody knows the cadence of our event. So you never have to think, right? So you always know it's going to be the last Wednesday of the month. And we've had it at Reset, but we're kind of switching it up for next year. But we always had the same cadence in the same location. So people always knew exactly what to expect. And with that, we've been able to bring a lot of different founders together to just network and brainstorm their different ideas and share lessons learned, as well as a lot of other people in tech. So it's more so, I would say, us wanting to make sure that for the Ashleys and the Reggies that were experiencing the same things that we were experiencing 8 years ago, that we find each other and build something great. And that's basically what Tech for the Culture has been with its growth. And then also, too, I'm just naturally very, very passionate about tech. I've always loved computers since I was 5. My mom was a computer technician, so I got exposure to it at a very early age. And it just flowed into it being my career and just a natural path for something I wanted to do forever.
Nice. And just like Joaquin said, it kind of seems like the steps were kind of laid out for all of you guys individually in your own way, and that you kind of just, worked with the circumstances and, maximized on that. So that's interesting that you guys are, laying out your paths and how you got into tech.
I was going to add one more point.
Go ahead.
And it kind of goes with what Kelly was saying, just how lucrative tech can be. So when I say it can be life-changing, as far as the salary and the money and things like that, that kind of come into play. And I always think about generational wealth, especially for, Black people, period. So I wanted to make sure that I had a hand in exposing people to that.
And I'm going to jump in on that too. I actually founded a nonprofit about 6 years ago called Exposure for that exact reason. And that nonprofit was because as we all experience and as we all experience in whatever our career paths are, a lot of times we're the only ones that look like us in a room. And when I stepped into that role that I found on Craigslist, I was a little sketch about, I was the only Black female manager. And the company at the time was about 200 people. I was the only Black female in the company, but I was at management level. So it came with its own, challenges and opportunities, right? But what I realized is that I can take some of the knowledge from my banking background and say, okay, we did a round robin when, I was in private banking for a little bit. I spent some time in energy for a little bit. I spent some time in the, regular banking center. And so I was like, okay, how can I do that so that everybody kind of gets exposure to what makes this company make sense? So when I left that organization and went to my first software company and founded Exposure, it was because I was like, if I have this really cool opportunity, like, why not reach back and bring other people in? And also, we're all just using transferable skills. You were a teacher. I was a banker, right? So, like, we're using this skill set, and that's what makes us us. And that's why when we go into these spaces, we see such success when we're there. And obviously, we need resources, and you have to have that, that grit and that education to push you forward. But if not for building community, then we wouldn't. Now everybody knows about technology and the impacts of technology. So I thought that was really important too, to make sure you bring others along with you.
Yes, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. So for all of you, when it comes to breaking into tech, what do you think people usually get wrong about, I guess, what it takes and the journey it takes to actually get into tech? I know I jumped in as I came from an entertainment and graphic design background, and I jumped in as a founder in blockchain as I learned. So I would say what Ashley said earlier with the you don't have to know everything is probably that biggest one for me. But yeah, what do you think people get wrong about coming into tech?
Wait your turn, Joaquin. Not messing with. So I'll say this. I've done this multiple times. I'm gonna tell you a secret not everybody knows. Like, just straight up. I'm not saying that to be dramatic. So I think the biggest thing in breaking into tech, when you think about it, put yourself in the shoes of the technology company you want to work for. There's a job and there's a position. And everyone who applies, all 600 to 1,000 of them say, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. This was very frustrating for me. Having a somewhat technology background, I remember I applied for a job that was in Silicon Valley. I applied. I got through 2 rounds of interviews. And then they said, oh, we're going to move on with another candidate. And I was like, but I can do the role. But they didn't necessarily believe I could do the role because my background wasn't as fancy. And they actually hired someone else. The person they hired came from Airbnb. At the time, I had only done like freelance contract work and a few other things. So they just didn't believe that I could do it. And Airbnb sounds better than whatever I had going on my resume. However, I thought about it and I was like, what would make the decision easier for them? Okay, they want to know if I can do this growth marketing position for their company. I'm actually just going to make up a test and a premise for myself and actually just do it. So I put together about 10 slide presentation to say, I know you all passed up on me, but if y'all were to hire me, this is what I would do for you. I had the layout, I had how I think, I had a whole creative campaign that I made. I had a web design background. I made a landing page using their technology to make the landing page. They had that. And then I even made like some ads in Photoshop that I put out there. I sent it to them. I didn't expect nothing. I just wanted to see if I could do it. I think I did all that in an evening. I was frustrated. I got rejected. I was frustrated I got rejected. You got to save your pride, right? So I was frustrated I got rejected. I did that from 7 to like 1 a.m. I did it. I emailed it to them. Like, whatever. The next day was a Friday. And they were like, the director wants to talk to you. I was like, oh, okay. What's up? And the director goes, hey, I know we interviewed you. I apologize. I didn't know you could do this. So, but we hired somebody else. So just stay in touch with us and like, we'll hire you back. And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm looking for jobs. I don't know. And he was like, I'm gonna go ask the company for more money to hire you. I was like, all right, cool. He went back, came back, and that's how I got hired. And I'll end the story with this. The interesting thing was the person they hired that came from Airbnb had a better resume than me. But when it came to the day-to-day skills of doing things, because I had a more diverse background, I actually kind of knew more than they did. But again, I'm saying that to say even the companies don't really know what you know. So to the best of your ability, show them what you're capable of, whether it be in the networking process, in the application process. Show them something unique that you can do that could add value to their company.
That's awesome.
Go ahead. Okay.
You going?
You can share a mic over here. To answer the question, Nathan, me and Nathan talk all the time, so I knew that story. But I think I've been to a lot of mixer cloud events and just different type of tech events around Houston and everywhere. And one of the main things that I hear a lot when I'm networking and talk to people that are trying to get into tech, one of the things they say is, yeah, man, I'm trying to get into tech. I'm like, okay, great. Well, which area of tech you trying to get into? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, what do you mean? What I mean? Like, what area of tech are you trying to get into? And they're like, well, I don't know. Maybe cybersecurity, maybe data, I don't know. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make trying to get into tech is they don't know what they want to do. And they don't realize that technology is a broad category of disciplines, right? So when you think about tech, there's software development, there's data. I mean, this is just from the development side, right? There's network engineering, there's software engineering, there's data engineering, there is cybersecurity, there is, of course, business intelligence, there's tech and sales, right? You can start your business in tech, product development, whatever the case may be. And in every single industry, tech is there. It doesn't matter where it is. It's just like data. It's everywhere, right? And so I think if you want to get into tech, I think you need to first choose what path you would like to take. That doesn't mean that you can't pivot, right? Because we've already heard tons of people have pivoted from different types of things, whether they may have started in an area then pivoted somewhere. In tech, I started in software engineering, but ended up pivoting to database management and business intelligence, right? So I think that's that. I have one more, okay? Another thing too, I think where people see this guy. Another thing I think where people get wrong, especially when I go to all these events, and like I said, I'm looking at it more so from the company standpoint, not necessarily from the sales standpoint, right? But if you're working for a company, I think a lot of people think that you're going to make the big bucks right away. And that's cap, okay? If I'm calling it how it is, it's cap. Like there's some ads to be running on Instagram saying that you can become a data engineer, make $350,000 a year. I'm like, bro, there's some CEOs that doesn't even make $350,000 a year, right? And so don't expect that you may make a lot of money coming in. Now, you're going to do well, but over time, I think it's good to know that you'll be able to put in some work. Like for instance, what I did was I started learning these different disciplines in the realm of business intelligence. Once I started doing that, then I started gaining work experience, right? Once you start gaining work experience, people are like, oh, this guy can just jump in. A lot of companies that I've applied to, from my experience, people look for those guys who have that work experience that they can just jump in and fix and bring a solution at that specific time. If you can't bring a solution at that specific time, it's kind of like, well, sometimes some companies don't have the time to really just, train you up. That is true. Well, my sister says up here that that these companies will teach you what you need to know, right? But there are some companies also that say, hey, look, I need somebody to jump in and jump in fast, right? And when you gain that work experience, that's when people will start, you'll start seeing, oh man, this guy just jumped in and did all these different things. And now you have become a help, to the company, not a hindrance.
I was just trying to think of.
That you had something.
Yeah, I was just trying to volley between what you all had said. But what I will say is, to add on to you, not only do you need to figure out what it is you're doing, but what I like to ask my mentees, because once you get to a certain level, folk are like, can we talk all the time? I was like, yeah, of course. But when I like to ask my mentees is, what would you do for free, right? What type of technology, like not even from a technology perspective, like I want to know what is it that you would do for free? If you could live well, whatever, and it didn't cost anything, what's that dream job? And then, because I like to understand those transferable skills. The second piece is I want to ask people, what technology intrigues you the most, right? Because even, you mentioned cybersecurity. There's AI in cybersecurity. There's unified communications. There is contact center as a service. There's conversational AI. So there's like all these different technologies. I mean, and then we still have the internet and satellite, right? So you have all these various different technology sets. What interests you the most? Because that's probably what you're going to be most excited about and be able to, produce and respond better for your organization. And so I say all of those things, like you need to figure out what that is before you're just like, I just want to get into tech, because nobody can help you if you don't know what it is that you need and where you're going. The other thing I would say is when it comes to like a challenge or trying to get into tech, the opportunity is finding community, right? So Ashley started a community. There's TUS is a community, right? There's all these separate communities. You need to find your tribe of people that are moving in the same direction that you're moving, or at least are going to elevate you so that you can keep moving in that direction that you want to go. Because what I found was not only, I did an amazing job with the first couple of organizations that I work with, but when I found community, I did even better, because now there are different resources. You mentioned Udemy earlier. I know the CMO over at Udemy actually now, but there's all these different resources that you don't know because you don't know. So when I think about, why I founded Exposure, was because, a lot of folks say things happen on the golf course. Well, how many of y'all own golf clubs, right? Right? Or even have any thought process around wanting to do it, right? But I know that if I go to the basketball court, if I go to the football field, or if I go wherever that might be, like I'm gonna find my tribe of people. So I just chose to create one because we needed our own golf course and technology to be able to share the triumphs and the challenges. And so, like I said, I'll round it out with just saying, find your people, find your tribe.
Yeah. I love how you said that. Our own golf course. I love that. Go ahead, Joaquin.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add on to something she just said, which was really, really good. That passion piece is really good, right? Because a lot of times, like I said before, a lot of people try to get into tech for the money, right? And a lot of times people try to say, hey, you know what? I got to do all these different things. And I got to try to get at the money, get at the bag, right? I got to try to do all these different things. But I think another issue is when we try to do multiple things at the same time. So like, we feel like we got to be experts in software engineering. We feel like I have to also be an expert in marketing, right? I have to also be an expert in sales and products. No, right? I think if I'm being honest, it's just my opinion, where the bag really comes is if you are an expert in your specific area, right? And the bag will come. I'm just letting you know. For me, business intelligence, a lot of times a lot of people don't stay long enough in a specific area to make sure that they become an expert in that area. And that's where innovation starts at that specific area, right? We can't innovate if I'm not an expert in that specific area, right? So like, for instance, business intelligence, I work with Power BI all the time. Power BI, Tableau, any type of your analytical tools, I work with those. So a question that I talked to a guy a couple of weeks ago, and the question that was asked was, well, who is the expert on Power BI? And it's like, I'm like, man, I don't really know. Specifically, the Black expert. Now, we know Power BI is a Microsoft product, right? But of course, I'm thinking, well, somebody at Microsoft, I'm pretty sure they're the ones who developed it, right? But he asked the question of, hey, are we actually innovating our own materials? And it's like, man, I don't really know, who that person is. So I think we have to also start thinking about what's our lane and being okay with staying in our lane, so that we can become more innovators than just, than just doers of working that specific product.
Nice. It's funny that you said when you ask someone, how do they want to break into tech, and they go immediately to cybersecurity. I think a lot of people say that because they also see the ads that you're talking about, like, making $300,000 in 2 days, or, after you get this certificate that they're selling. So I would ask you guys, what are some realistic and actionable ways to actually break into tech? Are there certain certifications that you should absolutely have first? Like, what are you guys' recommendations?
I've already been talking.
Like with me being a technical program manager, my experience, like 18 years, 19 years or so, it kind of speaks for itself. So everyone is like always like, Ashley, did you get your PMP? Did you get your PMP, right? And I think that was something that wasn't really being pushed when I first started. But now, since the market is getting a little bit more saturated, it is a way to, kind of set yourself apart, right? But I actually don't have my PMP. It's something I've thought about getting, but it's like once I hit like a goal of working at the place that I really have been wanting to work for a very long time, once I got Google on my resume, I said the rest is just going to be so easy, right? So that was my thing. So I would say there are some certifications, especially now since everybody has been trying to break into tech, that you want to be able to get and try to separate yourself from PMP, even though I don't have mine. I would say another thing too is Agile certification, at least from a senior technical program manager. But you'll also be surprised, like in a lot of big tech companies, some of them use Agile, some of them use like some of the methodologies from project management, and a lot of them don't. They just do things the way that they want to do it, right? So that's where it kind of comes into, they'll teach you things that, that you need to know for your job. I would say those are probably like the top two. It doesn't hurt to just be well versed in something. Like AI is a very big thing. So they have a lot of introductory courses around generative AI and something that's a little bit deeper. And a lot of those are free, like Google Cloud and AWS. They have a lot of different free materials that you can access. And another thing I would say too, back to like Kelly's point where she was saying like, if you have like community and things like that, and she has mentors, when people ask me how to break into tech, if they actually haven't started the research themselves, I'm like, you're not ready for tech. And the reason for that is because you have to be a self-starter. And if you're not a self-starter, you're going to struggle even once you get into tech, because a lot of these organizations, it can be like, you have a call with someone about a meeting, about a project. The expectation, nobody's going to say it to create the document, but you have to think it's your job to create the document. Because if you don't create the document, more than likely somebody else is going to create the document, and then they will take away the project that was intended for you. So you have to be quick. Another thing I was going to say around was just like knowing that people want to hear from you, right? So I used to run this program for Android and Pixel. Basically, it was all the testing before it actually made it into the actual market, like, on the stores for everybody to sell. Well, because I am a diverse person, I have diverse, experiences with different things. And the people who actually made these products didn't look like any of us. The majority were white, Indian, Asian, just a mix of people, right? But not a lot of us. So I started to introduce, I was like, you know what? I wear nails. And I know that, like these different devices that, I'm leading the testing on, they're hard to open. I have to pump my gas with my nails. Like, are y'all thinking about that when y'all like creating these different products? Because even though the product may be made for everyone in the world, it's not made by everybody. So it's like, bring your different perspectives and know that people want to hear from you. And then your original question was around the certification. So I think I covered that, but I'll hand it to Kelly.
I'll jump in. I love that you said that because you guys had a product leader at Google who wrote a book about the impact of the diversity that we bring into rooms, and to lean into that. Not only your story, but the Band-Aid story, right? About 10 years ago, we finally got brown, you're right, we got melanin-focused Band-Aids, right? All of those things come out of the opportunity, not only, it's not just innovation, but the opportunity to look at the culture and look at the people that are the consumers that are navigating this product. And it's no different with technology. And so I guess for me, when I think about my role in sales, you need to understand the technology, right? You need to understand the technology. You need to understand what the business is solving for. You also need to understand who your consumer is, right? What's important to them, and what goals and metrics are they trying to achieve, right? And what other things are they building for themselves? And technology works in an ecosystem, right? And it's so funny. This is perfect timing. I got a call on my cell phone that also came up on my watch that if I had my AirPod in, AirPod, whatever Apple's calling them these days, and it would have alerted me here too. So that's no different than the technology that our consumers are using from a corporate perspective or even a small business. They're using a suite of technology to help them get through their day. So you need to understand that if you're going to do any of these roles and also if you're going to go start your own business.
Nice.
Why can't you guess them? I'm joking. No, so when it comes to, I won't say there's one particular certification. I will say if there's certain companies you desire to work at, there's a bug. All right, I'm not crazy. All right. If there's certain companies you desire to work at, if you read the job description and you start seeing technologies that are listed, I wouldn't be intimidated. Go find out about those particular technologies. And there are different courses and different things about that particular technology. So you may read the job description and say, oh, I think I can do that. And then you get intimidated when you see must know, and it goes down the list of Tableau or Power BI, or you must know Asana or Monday.com, or you must, for project management, you must know all these things. Atlassian, they may throw out all these names, and you're like, what is that? Go find out what those things are. And there are courses for those things. Now, I don't want to just throw out generic courses, but one thing that I know I've done in the past is if you live in Harris County and you're a resident of Houston, you can get a library card, right? So you can go online and get a MyLink library card. You get a library card, it'll give you a number. You can go on LinkedIn Learning. You can search LinkedIn Learning Houston Library Card. You can go on LinkedIn Learning, give them your library card number, you get a free access to LinkedIn Learning. That's everybody who's a resident of Houston, Texas, Harris County. You don't have to pay for it, it's free. So if there's certain courses that are relevant to certain jobs that you want, take them on LinkedIn Learning. If you complete the course on LinkedIn Learning, that links to your LinkedIn profile. So if you're applying for roles and then they say, what expertise or certification or learnings do you have in this particular area? You can say, look at all these courses that I took that are focused on this area that I'm interested in, right? So that's something practical and free and available. Of course, it takes time, but that's available to all of us in the room. So I've done that where there's certain roles and I'm like, oh, I have everything except for this one area. Let me take the quick LinkedIn Learning course. All right, and then apply. And if they ever ask me in the interview, oh, what learnings do you have in this area with this software? Oh, I just completed a course and I've also done this. And I start talking about my knowledge of whatever that software is to support the role that I'm going to be in. So yeah, that's just like a practical thing we can all do.
Nice. So what I'm hearing is no excuses and take the initiative. There's so many resources, and then you got ChatGPT to tell you everything and how to find anything you need to find. So it's kind of hard to, be in a stagnant place if you really actually want to be in tech. And then the community aspect, I didn't get to touch on that, but I think that that's super important, especially in that in today's time. Yeah, to keep you encouraged. So we'll wrap it up kind of with this last question. I want to ask the audience for, their questions. But how do you think the tech industry is changing for newcomers? What trends or new opportunities are you most excited about, especially from the time you guys hopped into tech? What do you feel is different for the newcomers compared to back then?
AI, right?
I knew someone would say that. Yeah.
It's here. It's going to be here. It ain't going nowhere. And I think we need to really start preparing ourselves to think more how we can use AI in pretty much every single area, right, of tech, all right? Another thing for me specifically for my path, right, I think my path is pretty much leading me to be more of a director/executive, right? I'm not necessarily looking at the moment, because doesn't mean I can't pivot, but I'm not necessarily looking to be into like sales or things like that, but more so looking to be more of an executive. Here's why. A couple of years ago, I actually attended an Afrotech conference, did the executive stage, and there was a lady, don't know her name, totally forgot, some years ago. She made the statement that about 80% of white males are in leadership roles, right? And particularly tech leadership roles, right? And so one of the things I think that for me and people who are, taking the same path or a similar path that I'm taking is we have to kind of start thinking more about how can we get into those roles. Kelly mentioned something about culture, right? And like you mentioned about your nails and like, hey, like and all these different things. Our culture can also be, we can also use our culture to get into some of those other roles. Like here's what I'm getting at. What the lady was getting at on stage at Afrotech, she was basically saying people can't know what you need unless like a lot of us like who look like us are in those specific roles, right? It's difficult to also hire somebody who looks like me as well, right? If I'm in those roles, right? So I want to be me personally, I think we need to kind of start taking more of a look into that executive level role so that we can start hiring people going to HBCUs. A lot of people are going to Texas A&M. They're going to, a Texas or a University of Georgia or a Florida, right? And they're gathering all of this talent from those locations. But I'm a product of a HBCU. I went to Savannah State University, right? And the Savannah State University. And so just letting y'all know. So I think it's important, man, that there's tons of different, innovators and people who are in technology at those specific types of schools. And a lot of times, because we're not on those boards and not in those rooms, we can't really voice our opinion on those things, right? And so I think, man, what people do is they'll go and be able to get somebody and say, hey, look, man, let's go to Texas A&M or let's go to a lot of these PWI schools. Nothing against that, right? I think there's a lot of talent there. But when you and we, or me, myself, as a Black person in that room, you just bring a lot of other things to the table that our white counterparts may not necessarily think about. And so I think, man, from a technological standpoint, I think, man, we have to really start thinking about getting into more of those top executive roles so that we can make an impact for the company as well as for our culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, real quick, I'll say, thinking like the next generation, what I'd say, be adaptable. Be adaptable. And when I'm saying be adaptable is a lot of the emerging technologies that we see coming up, it's just evolving from something else, right? Simple example, I even saw this today. You have taxi cabs, and then Uber and Lyft came along. Well, I even say before taxi, you have taxi cabs, and then you have rental cars. Then now you have Uber and Lyft. Walking in here, I literally saw a guy waiting on a corner. A company delivered a rental car to him, dropped it off, and then the person who dropped it off took Uber, went back, and then they had a car, and they'll come pick it up from him later. I was like, oh. It's like these small steps of evolving technologies that kind of ladder up to something greater. You have to be able to adapt no matter what it is and or where you are. Learn to become adaptable. I would say currently in whatever role that you have, in whatever job that you have, if you're able to say, hey, we have a process at work, it's kind of messy, but we can use fill-in-the-blank technology to make things easier. The process of recognizing that and then identifying a good solution and then implementing that solution, that process of how you did that is adaptable to whatever. So I would say learn and study that well, and you can do that in whatever role that you have. And if you're able to actually get that implemented, that's to your credit. Put that on your resume. But also that can transfer. Because I'm going through that even now where there were other jobs, things were very messy. I implemented something. It made the company better. It saved them money. That's on my resume. And I'm kind of doing the same thing in whatever role I'm in. I see a process. Oh, this is messy. How can we make this better? So yeah, be adaptable, I would say.
That's awesome too, Nathan, because that's something that I challenge my students. I teach a marketing and Web3 AI course, and I always challenge them to look at those pain points and figure out where the next innovation is about to come from. You can tell by paying attention to the industry and paying attention to what we're struggling with. So I'm glad you said that.
Same thing for data too. So, yeah.
Awesome. Same thing for data. So yeah, find where people are looking to grow. It's kind of like a specific point. It's like that crevice on even starting a new idea for a company or for new technology. Find the pain points. Find where you're struggling with or what you're having issues with. That's the quickest way for you to find an innovation or an innovative idea. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'll just add what I'm seeing is just some of the trends. It's just like the dynamic worker. So before, like when I first started 18 years ago in tech, everybody was like either really technical or they were like partially technical. I think with the way how the world is trending, we're finding people who I work or have worked alongside of that are social workers, previously social workers, teachers, musicians, all these different types of different backgrounds because based on their experiences, it can make them look differently at different products and how to actually, like move forward with development. Like I said before, where people wouldn't necessarily have insight into that. So I'm just seeing a lot of different backgrounds that are entering in tech. And I think that's really important because those days of where you're like a software developer and you're just like in your cube all day just coding and not being able to speak in front of a group of people about what you're coding, those days are over with. Because what will happen is a person that's in marketing who knows just a little bit on how to code will come in and they will explain that thing just like that. And you'll be over here like, oh, I know how to code, but it's not really about that anymore. It's about how do you sell what you're developing, right? And then I would say also too, the second trend that I'm seeing, especially with all the recent news around 300,000 Black women being laid off within now probably the last 90 days, and it's probably even more now. It's probably going to be even more, is I'm seeing people betting on themselves. Mainly, they may be leaving corporate or however they're leaving. They're taking the knowledge that they've learned from their particular jobs and they are starting their own businesses and things around that. And they're just betting on themselves. So if I work in tech and I've always been working on like giving people insights about the products that the company is creating, I can easily do that outside of working at the company that I'm working for. So I would just say, try to be as well-rounded as possible whenever you do decide to break into tech or if you do break into tech. And then also, once you get in, don't be so like in it to where you can't see outside of it, because what we all know is that the rug can be pulled from under us at any time in this particular economy. And I would just say too, just make sure that you're staying sharp, keeping up to date with all of the different trends, or especially AI. It's a lot of AI, like I said, trainings that you can take, but just stay sharp and just network as much as possible, especially for the career conference that's happening at Afrotech. You guys do get a chance to go. There may be, you just scan the QR code. People are like, it's so many QR codes. Nobody's actually hiring. Scan the QR code, because with a lot of these different companies, once you're in their system, they may not call you like in 2 months. They may call you in 6 months, a year and a half. So just don't skip the opportunity.
Nice. And that's what I say. It's the best time for you to be yourself right now. Whether it's branding, marketing, whatever the case may be yourself. This is the time to try it, especially with everything that's going on. Kelly, last thoughts. We'll wrap it up with you.
I think you were a tee up when you said bet on yourself for sure. And I think that the way that we can leverage betting on ourselves is by using technology, right? I think that the accessibility to the various technologies, and now I'm not going to say silos, but the various different types of technology, the various different types of AI, the various different resource groups that we've all mentioned, lean into one of those. There's something that, hopefully resonated with you that all of the panel shared. And no different than finding your community. Like, I'm going to double down on that all the time, because you're going to need somebody to volley your thoughts off of. At dinner last night, I'll say this and then I'll close. At dinner last night, there was a young lady at the bar and she came over. She saw myself and my two co-founders sitting at the table talking. She's like, I'd love to just join you guys. And then we found out that her and her best friend started a new organization. And as we were talking to her about it, we realized very quickly that she needs a mentor, right? And not only does she need a mentor, she has what I believe is a really amazing idea she's trying to solve for, and they have a business around it, but they've already talked to what could be a competitor about their business without an NDA, right? And she was like, we didn't even know to get an NDA. And I was like, of course not, babe. Like, I get it. And also, this is why community is important, because if she had been a part of, one of your platforms or the TUS House or any of the others, someone would have said, hey, before you start talking about this too much, make sure that you have an NDA, you get it trademarked, you have it, identified. And so that's why I double down on community so much, because I think that it exposes us to things that that are just out of our purview, because we just don't have experience with it. And so that's what I would say is my closeout what I'm hoping that we do more of, especially right now when all the things are changing. We have to rely on us. So if not us, then who?
Right. Each one teach one. Guys, thank you for being on the panel with me. Feel free to reach out to these beautiful people out, after the panel. They have plenty of insight. Community. This is a big community. Reach out, connect with other people in the room so we can stay, in this community and build things up for each other. Thank you.
Excellent. Clap it up. Thank you. Listen, I will say